Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start today's video with a story from a quiet little tennis club where a friendly gardener was cheated out of his hard-earned money. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. What are you gonna do? Gardener answers with hundreds of tennis balls. I go to tennis classes at the local club twice a week. One of the other alumni on the class is a 50-year-old gardener. Cool guy. He's been working in the business since he was like 20. We live in a smallish town, so a lot of people know him, and he's worked for quite a few in town over the years. He's generally well-liked and friends with mostly everybody. There's one thing he does wrong about his business. He trusts people a lot, to the point that sometimes he agrees on a price for some work without drafting a contract. He goes, does the job, and gets paid. The old school handshakes and word are enough contract if you know the other guy's school of thought. Right next to the tennis courts, there's a house with a big garden. One day, one of us overhit a ball and it ended up in said garden. Nothing out of the ordinary could happen. After the class, Gardner told us that the owner of said house owes him a lot of money because a couple of years ago he did a complete remodel and overhaul of the garden, and when he finished, the house owner asked him for a couple more days for payment. Those days turned into weeks, then turned into owner not returning Gardner's phone calls, but since no contract was signed, Gardner couldn't go to the police about it, or at least he couldn't legally do nothing about it. So he had an argument with owner once. When he ran into him, owner straight up said he wasn't going to pay, and then he said, "What are you going to do? Go ahead, try to make my garden a mess just like it was. You can't set foot on my property or I'll call the cops on you." Gardner ended up assuming the money was lost and moved on with it. A couple of classes after Gardner told us the story, Coach told us that they had to change the tennis balls since they were old and barely bouncy anymore. They do this like every couple months or so. There are around 3 to 4 carts with between 80 to 100 tennis balls per cart. Gardner asked Coach what he was going to do with the old ones since there's no recycling program for tennis balls in town or nearby. Coach said, "I'll probably gonna toss them in the trash." Gardner asked Coach if he had no problem giving the balls to him after class. Coach said no. He was intrigued. After the class was finished, Gardner gathered the carts and began tossing all the balls to the house's garden. The rest of the class, Coach included, who also had heard the story that Gardner told, understood and began helping. We threw around 300-something tennis balls to owner's garden. Owner showed up a couple minutes later to complain, shouting, "Hey, you're doing it on purpose, making a mess of my garden." Until he saw Gardner, he went mute, turned around, and left. Local police came a couple minutes later. Officer knows Gardner and chats with him for a couple of minutes. Then officer tells us that there's been a complaint about people tossing balls to the house. Coach smiles and says, "You know, they're learning. Overhits happen." Officer smiles, says, "You're absolutely right. Part of learning," turns around and leaves. It's now become a tradition. Every time the club has to change the tennis balls, Coach makes sure Gardner gets all the carts for a ceremonial game of tennis basketball, with owner's garden being the bucket. To my mind, using all the balls at once is the wrong way. Guy has to pick up a few hundred tennis balls every few months. I'd either save the balls up and do 1,000 at once, or save up a couple thousand, do a couple hundred, wait a few days and do a couple hundred more. Keep repeating so the guy thinks this is now going to keep happening every few days. And our second story. Fired for blocking the camera with my sun visor, winter karma took care of the rest. A few years back, I decided to return to truck driving after taking a few years off to focus on raising my daughter. She was about 2 or 3 at the time, and while I was excited to get back on the road, I quickly learned that re-entering the industry wasn't going to be as easy as I'd hoped. Most companies weren't interested in hiring someone with that long of a gap, so I had to settle for one of the big-name carriers. That decision turned out to be one of the worst I've ever made. Before this, I'd never had an issue with driver-facing cameras. I don't mess around on the road, no phone use, no dangerous stunts, nothing unsafe, so having a camera wasn't a big deal to me, but this company had taken it to a whole new level of ridiculous. They'd mounted a dual-facing camera, one lens pointing at me, one at the road, right where the sun visor would normally be. The placement meant that if I pulled the visor down to keep from being blinded, I'd block the camera, and apparently that was a recordable offense. The first few times it happened, I got calls telling me to make sure you're not covering the camera. I explained the obvious. The visor was there to keep me from being blinded during sunrise and sunset. Their response, don't block the camera. I told them I couldn't stick anything else on the windshield to block the sun because that would also be unsafe. Again, don't block the camera. I asked if they could move it somewhere else. Flat, no. I pressed them. How was I supposed to see when the sun was burning a hole in my retinas? Same robotic answer. Don't block the camera. It escalated to the point where they threatened my job. If I blocked the camera one more time, they said they'd remotely shut down my truck and have local police escort me out of the cab. So I did the safest thing I could think of. I started parking. Every time the sun got low enough to hit me directly in the face, I'd pull into a safe spot and wait it out. Morning, evening, didn't matter. No visor meant no visibility, and I wasn't about to risk rear-ending someone just so their precious camera could have an unobstructed view of my boredom. My dispatcher eventually noticed the delays and asked why my loads were arriving late. I told him exactly why. I even apologized to him personally. He understood my reasoning, but I made it clear that safety came first. He started adjusting my loads to account for my sun breaks, but it didn't save me. After 5 months, they fired me. The cherry on top? When they let me go, they told me I was unsafe, stupid, and not fit for trucking. They even threw in a sexist jab about finding a job better suited for a woman. Oh, and they smugly told me no one else would hire me, not even the bottom-tier second chance companies. Fast forward 2 years, and I've been driving for a company that actually treats me like a human being. They respect safety, they respect drivers, and they respect the job. And this past winter, after a 2-day storm on I-29, I happened to notice 4 trucks from my old company sitting in the ditch or stranded in the median. Meanwhile, I was still rolling, my load delivered, waiting comfortably for my next unload. Some karma just drives itself right into a snowbank. I'm totally shocked that their safety officer would allow such a stupid placement of a camera. This is a case where management has never ridden in nor driven a truck. Nice job in finding a way to stay safe despite their stupidity. And our next story. Make me a bicycle, clown! So a little background. My mom raised 3 kids, basically on her own. She's a bit of an eccentric lady and considers herself an artist above all, but worked a day job to be able to put us through school and college, helping where she could for extra money. She'd do things like face paintings at art fairs, Little League opening days, kids' parties. She eventually learned balloon animals and developed a clown personality. When I was fresh out of college, I moved back to stay with my mom for a bit, and she asked my help with the balloon animals for bigger events, as there would always be a line, and most kids only want one of 4 things: dog, hat, flower, or sword. So I learned the basics and would help. Soon I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and could make more than her and would take the big line and she could back me up or do different clown things. Eventually I started taking gigs on my own, and they pay pretty well. $50 an hour minimum, 2 hours additional time on the spot, typically $75 an hour. Anyway, I used to attend an Oktoberfest celebration with friends from college that was hosted by one friend's family. The host had brewed all the beer, 25 plus taps, and people brought a dish or something to share. It was always a blowout. Bands played, there were yard games, tons of food, a magician, bounce house. You get the picture. One year I decided my contribution would be balloon animals. I'd set up for an hour or so and make sure all the kids got at least one. So I set up early-ish on so the max number of kids are there to give a treat, and immediately I have a huge line. Some kids are waiting 10 to 15 minutes, but I'm making great progress. When all of a sudden a wild Karen appears with her child in tow, she snaps at me. "You need to make my child a balloon animal." I say, "Of course, I'm going to make sure everyone gets at least one." She responds, "Well, we've been waiting forever." And I said, "I know, I'm doing the best I can. I'm just one man." These are typical deflections you pick up after doing enough gigs to calm 99% of parents. The woman keeps pressing me, and I finally lost my cool and snapped, "Look, lady, I'm doing this for free because I thought it would be nice. I provided the balloons and my time, which I usually make, insert previously mentioned pay, so I'd appreciate a little patience." She sort of mumbled, "Oh, I didn't know," and got back in line. Yes, her little girl got a balloon animal, and I, of course, was kind to her. I finished up the line and had a great time at the rest of the fest. Should have made a cute little animal for her daughter and a giant middle finger for the Karen. I bet there's a way to make a balloon middle finger. If not, I'd be sorely disappointed. Good on you for reminding Karen that you're a person, not a machine, and that there's more to just her and her daughter trying to have fun. And our last story. They wanted us to drain the lake. We drained their wallet instead. I've got to set the scene here. My mom lives in this quiet little lake community in Pennsylvania. It's not some exclusive gated McMansion kind of place, just a handful of winding streets wrapped around a pretty good-sized lake where folks swim, fish, or float around on kayaks. There's a small HOA community association, mostly run by retirees with too much time on their hands. The only weird part, the lake sits just off a busy 2-lane highway, and right at the corner where the community meets the highway, there's a gas station. One morning, Mom gets a call from the HOA president, absolutely tickled. Turns out the gas station had phoned him first, all worked up. Gas station guy, your lake water's too high. It's leaking into our gas tanks. You need to lower the water immediately or we're calling the Department of Environmental Protection. HOA president, no need for that, sir. I'll take care of it. Now, if you're thinking that sounds reasonable, it wasn't, because the moment he hung up, the president didn't call a maintenance crew and he definitely didn't touch the lake's water level. Nope, he picked up the phone and called the DEP himself. HOA president to DEP, we've got a problem. The gas station says our lake water is seeping into their tanks. But if that's happening, doesn't that mean their gas is leaking into our lake? And just like that, the ball was rolling. The DEP came down hard. Within days, investigators were swarming the gas station property, taking soil samples and testing the water. The rumors started almost instantly. Contamination, underground leaks, massive environmental violations. By the end of the week, they'd confirmed the gas station's tanks were corroded and leaking fuel into the surrounding soil, and yes, potentially toward the lake. The gas station was ordered to shut down parts of its operation immediately. The owners tried to play it off as a small maintenance issue, but when the official DEP report dropped, the numbers were brutal. Months of construction required, new tanks, new safety measures, and a cleanup operation that would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000. Meanwhile, the lake, completely fine. The water stayed exactly where it always was, same height, same gentle lap at the shoreline. For the next 3 months, construction crews tore up the gas station's lot. Whole sections were fenced off, the pumps ripped out, and trucks full of gravel and concrete came and went all day. Business tanked, pun intended. Locals started joking that the lake had taken out the gas station in self-defense. The owners weren't laughing. They showed up at the next HOA meeting, furious, accusing the president of overreacting and costing them hundreds of thousands. The president just sat back, laced his fingers together, and gave them the calmest response I've ever heard. HOA president, so just to clarify, you called me and claimed our lake water was contaminating your tanks, correct? Owner, yes, but HOA president, and all I did was make sure the proper authorities were informed, in case your tanks were contaminating our lake. Turns out they were. Sounds like we should be thanking you for bringing it to our attention. The room went dead silent, except for a few people smirking into their coffee cups. By the time the DEP was done, the station had a sparkling new set of tanks and a freshly paved lot, but they'd also lost most of their customer base. Word had gotten around how that they'd been leaking gas for who knows how long, and people weren't exactly lining up to buy sandwiches and fuel from them anymore. Here's the delicious cherry on top. 2 months after the repairs were finished, the property went up for sale. The rumor mill says the owners couldn't recover financially, especially with fines, legal fees, and the DEP breathing down their necks. A few of the locals were hoping for another gas station to move in, but honestly, most of us are perfectly happy with the idea of a nice little coffee shop taking over instead. They didn't think it all the way through, as the last thing they should have wanted was any attention from the environmental folks. Nicely played by the association/HOA. You want to play? Okay, we'll play. Oh, crap. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.